What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today I wanted to showcase a Shadow Dragonite team in the Ultra League. This is actually one that I've used quite a bit in the past. I love Shadow Dragonite because of how offensive it is, but pairing it with Shadow Drapion and Gastrodon is just such a safe and flexible team in the Ultra League. Very strong Pokemon here, and a very fun team to use. If you want to see my battles live, I stream almost every single day at twitch.tv/ItsAXN, where you can see live insights into my gameplay and see my teams early. I'd love to see you there. The link to that is down in the description. But without further ado, let's get into the battles and see what Shadow Dragonite can do. Alright, game number one. We're going to see our Shadow Dragonite in the lead up against a Pangoro. This is not exactly a good matchup, despite the fact that we are a flying type into a fighting type. It's always going to be a win for Dragonite, but these Night Slashes are so spammy, they can probably throw one and swap out if they really want to here. Night Slash probably putting us below half health already just because of how strong that Pokemon is, and because of how squishy our Shadow Dragonite is as well. In comes a Drapion here. We're going to go for a Dragon Claw, chip them down, and try to put them into an easy Mud Slap farm down range. They do end up having the non-Shadow Drapion, actually, which is a little bit unique in this meta. Normally see a Shadow Drapion if you can. Our opponent likely either wants to use this for a different reason, maybe they're running Sludge Bomb, or maybe they just don't have a good Shadow Drapion. But even with that said, Gastrodon is still a very hard answer to this Pokemon. We can survive 2 crunches here, no debuff on that first one, hopefully no debuff on the second one, and our energy on our Gastrodon should go quite a ways as long as they don't have a hard wall to us in the back line. If it's Pangoro that comes back in, Earth Power will probably knock them out, but if it's a Drifblim, that is going to be the exact opposite. This is probably the best possible answer they could have had to this Pokemon. Earth Power doing nothing, Body Slam doing absolutely nothing, and no defense drop here from our Earth Power. Not that it would have really helped out in this matchup, but I think we're still in a pretty good spot this game. I have my Shadow Drapion. That's a very good matchup into this Pokemon, and in comes that Pangoro instantly into our Drapion, and we are going to counter swap with our Shadow Dragonite. The thing about this is they do have a lot of energy here, but our Shadow Dragonite is ripping through its HP with our Dragon Breath to the point where I can go for this Dragon Claw, hopefully draw a shield or get a knockout here. We'll see what our opponent wants to do. I'm going to undercharge just in case we can get like 1 or 2 extra Dragon Breaths, but they do let it go, which is a smart play, and now I can reach another Dragon Claw against this Drifblim. They let this go. I think it's probably the best play they can make right now, because that makes it so I have to throw 3 Aqua Tails rather than just 2 more crunches to win this game. So slightly more efficient of them to no-shield that attack. And now, even though Aqua Tail is not the most efficient move, they are in range where I can KO them with a very weak attack. These Icy Winds will start adding up. Astonish, though, being resisted is not going to put us into 2-shot range just yet. We still have a shield left over, and we are already at the next Aqua Tail. We just need 4 more Poison Stings to get to that 3rd Aqua Tail against this Drifblim. Shadow Ball even gets shielded up here. Shadow Ball does do more raw damage, so they're just trying to get the KO through the shield. Even if they landed that, I don't think it would have been enough, but GG's to them. Next matchup, a Drifblim in the lead, a very awkward lead matchup because they obviously have access to Icy Wind, a move that would basically one-shot our Shadow Dragonite, and they're also a very strong core breaker into our Gastrodon in the back. I'm going to go for these Dragon Claws and Dragon Breath damage, hopefully get a lot of damage or get a shield early from this thing. I need to take out this Drifblim as early as I can because I know our Gastrodon wants no part of this matchup. In comes the first Icy Wind here. They shielded the first attack. I'm going to shield the first attack myself and now try to reach a Dragon Claw right before their next Icy Wind. If they let this go, this is going to be prime farm down range for either my Shadow Drapion or maybe even my Gastrodon here. Our opponent, though, choosing to swap out to a Primeape and making my life a little bit difficult because I'm pretty sure I know the team. I've seen it quite often. I don't know if someone made a video on it, but Drifblim Double Fighter seems like it's absolutely everywhere in the Go Battle League right now. The second fighter normally being a Virizion, but sometimes you see like a Pangoro, maybe an Annihilate. And if that is the case, I know I don't want a Virizion against our Gastrodon here. We're going to come in and unfortunately no shield to close combat. I should have thrown the Body Slam a little bit sooner, but I can still get a nice farm down with our Shadow Drapion and hope that the backline is not going to be absolutely terrible for us right now. This is going to be a close combat. I do have to shield this up because that would do massive damage at a +1 boost on their Primeape, and in comes their final Pokemon. There's that Virizion. I wish that I had Sludge Bomb here, but I'm going to spam out these crunches, maybe get a defense drop. If I can get a debuff here, that would put us in a very good spot. Our opponent actually opted to shield the first move, respecting a potential Sludge Bomb, but we don't actually have it here. We're running Aqua Tail instead. Crunch number 2 going to come through. No debuff once again. If I could have got a debuff here, that would have been massive because then I could have got a debuffed Dragon Claw into them here, which would have done a critical amount of damage. With that said, they're still very low at the point where maybe they're in range where a crunch could knock them out, but our opponent is going to be able to just barely reach an Icy Wind before we can Poison Sting them all the way down, which is going to probably make it so our crunch doesn't knock out. It's going to be so close. That Virizion is very low, but I know at this point, Shadow Drapion, its crunch is going to be resisted. This is Ultra League. It's at -1. Is this enough to KO? I'm not quite certain. I'm going to have to hope that it is, but no, just barely 1 or 2 Poison Stings off, and there is the defense drop. A little bit too little too late this game. Unfortunately, right when you don't need it, that's when you're going to get the debuffs here. GG's to our opponent. Bit of a tricky team for us to face. If I would have thrown that Body Slam with our Gastrodon earlier in the game, might have been a different matchup there. Alright, next matchup, a fantastic lead. Shadow for Alligator is one of the best things we could see, and they instantly pivot out to a Shadow Drapion. This is very interesting. Maybe they're trying to bait out our Gastrodon, or maybe they're just kind of weak to it right now. We'll have to see what our opponent wants to do. Crunch, obviously, is the most efficient play. They can get a defense drop, and if they do, they can start threatening shields from us, actually. But thankfully, no debuff is going to come through from that Crunch, and now yet another charge move is going to be reached. I think at this point, I will have to throw a Body Slam if I want to take them out before they can reach an Aqua Tail to draw a shield from us, so I will respect that, go for this move, and just have a little bit more energy for the backline. Maybe I can reach an Earth Power against that Shadow Feraligatr. If I can, we're going to be in a very good spot. Earth Power is going to be just barely reached at the last second here. It's likely going to draw a shield or put this Shadow Feraligatr deep into the red. Earth Power ends up getting shielded. I'm going to swap out. I don't like giving them that farm down there because it feels like they're playing in a way where they're actually very weak to Shadow Dragonite. They're just trying to leverage advantage with their Feraligatr here, and that does appear to be the case. It's a Talonflame in the backline, a Pokemon that wants nothing to do with Shadow Dragonite, especially a Shadow Dragonite up this much energy. I can go for these Dragon Claws. If they ever let one go, I can just shield once, farm them all the way down, and use this energy against that Shadow Feraligatr in the backline. Shadow Drapion might not even need to see this battle. Here comes the Flame Charge, actually a very good bait from our opponent, but still shielding that up is going to be the safe play here. I farm them all the way down, which is fantastic because now I have 2 Dragon Claws nearly loaded for this Shadow Feraligatr. They are energy dry, so I can reach 1 Dragon Claw here, get a lot more Dragon Breath damage into them, and then even if I need my Shadow Drapion, it is going to be a fantastic matchup for us in the back. I mean, you don't get one shot by a Hydro Cannon, but it looks like this Dragon Claw is going to land and put them into fast food farm down range. Shadow Dragonite closing out that game extremely hard. GG's for our opponent. Alright, next game here, not a great lead, a Clefable. This is exactly why we have Shadow Drapion as our safe swap, though. We're going to try to swap this in, make something happen, but what is it? A Shadow Rhyperior is on our screen right now. This Pokemon is very weak to Water-type damage, but I don't know if this is quite enough to knock out. No, just barely they survive, and I think that's probably the worst-case scenario where they survive just barely, but just outside of Poison Sting downrange, or I can't flip this matchup. With that said, I might actually be able to reach 2 more Aqua Tails against this Shadow Rhyperior with our energy lead that we had, which means we might get both shields down. If they end up letting this go, this could be a little bit uncomfortable, but they opt to shield it. We get to yet another charge move here. This Aqua Tail should be more than enough to get the shield from this thing, or to get a switch advantage in this game. Our opponent opts to shield up that attack. I'm going to snipe them down with our Gastrodon, and we see their final Pokemon is going to be a Miltank. This is a very interesting team to see right now. Obviously, our Dragonite has almost no play with that Fairy type in the backline, potentially an Ice Beam and roll out Miltank here as well. What move are they going to throw against us? Let's just see. It is an Ice Beam, so Shadow Dragonite actually had no play, but it's a good thing that our opponent didn't actually give up switch advantage this game, because if they did and they kept shields, we would have no chance. But because they use both shields on their Shadow Rhyperior, we have a little bit of play right now. I'm going to shield up this charge attack, see what we can do against this Miltank here. Ice Beam does get shielded up, and what are they going to do? I have so much energy right now on our Gastrodon, our opponent trying to catch a Body Slam, but I see it coming. I go for the Earth Power instead, and if I can reach yet another Earth Power against this before they can knock us out with a Moonblast, we might actually be able to come back from this game. Earth Power number 2 coming through right now. Is it going to be enough to KO this Clefable? They are at the Moonblast. It is going to knock out the Clefable. In comes the Miltank, and at that point, our Dragonite could Dragon Breath them down. We could Mud Slap them down. GG's to them. Alright, next game, another Clefable in the lead. Not what I want to see, but I'm going to safe swap once again to our Shadow Drapion. Try to make the most out of this matchup. Our opponent actually going for a charge move before swapping out likely into a neutral matchup here. Swift is not going to do too much damage, but it is going to chip us down into a range where this could get uncomfortable, where Body Slams will start adding up over time. They could have Earthquake, but the reason that they threw the Swift is likely to throw just straight Body Slams in this matchup, so I'm going to use that information later on this game to potentially call baits from this Pokemon and maybe get a shield advantage here by going for Aqua Tails after landing 2 crunches. If I could have got a defense drop on that first charge move, this would have been a much better situation to be in, but unfortunately no debuff comes through here, which means that now I'm going to have to make the call and no shield this Body Slam. They are going to be able to knock us out with rollout damage and potentially the next Body Slam in just a second here, so maybe I want to make a catch, keep a bit of energy on our Shadow Drapion, and hopefully use our Dragonite in some helpful way this game. I don't know at this point though, I'm just trying anything I can. I know Shadow Dragonite is likely to be met with that Clefable once again in just a second here, so this is not a great matchup. They're going to get a lot of energy out of this, and because of that, I'm in a very bad spot. At the very least, I can at least bait a Hurricane here. Maybe I can make them throw energy a little bit early. I was actually so close to the 2 superpowers. I was hoping they'd let me get them off, but because they threw the Swift at the last second, I just have to let this go. Come in with the Gastrodon and hope their backline matchup is not going to be too bad for us right now. They're going to throw a charge move here. It's a Swift bait, okay, well I was expecting 100% of the time a Moonblast there, but a very good bait from our opponent. At this point, I'm expecting yet another big charge move here. What are they going to throw against us? Another Swift bait. Great shields by me. That's not looking great for us right now. Hopefully that means that they're very weak to our Gastrodon in the backline though, and if that is the case, maybe this energy could be useful, and maybe we still have a chance here. Moonblast this time does come through. I guess I am down shields at this point, so they are going to be free to throw that charge attack. I have to throw a Body Slam to take out this Clefable, and unless there's going to be, like, I don't know, a Tentacruel or something in the backline, this is going to be a very awkward game. They're just playing with us, and a Drifblim in the back the whole time, so I guess the baits were just completely meaningless. They were just playing with us, but GG's to them. Alright, next matchup, a Shadow Drapion, or Shadow Feraligatr rather, against our Shadow Dragonite in the lead. Fantastic lead for us once again, but this time they're showing that Shadow Feraligatr can kind of fight back in the 0 and 1 shield matchup, just because going straight Hydro Cannon actually wins you the 1 shields here in Ultra League. Shadow Claw does a lot of fast pressure. Hydro Cannon is a very strong move, and both of these Pokemon are very offensive, which means that Shadow Dragonite does have to respect the damage here. With that said, you can see just how much damage these Shadow Dragon Breaths have done to this Feraligatr right now. It's basically a non-issue at this point, and our opponent does end up coming in with a Licky Licky. I'm going to go for the Dragon Claw. I know that Superpower would basically knock them out here. It's almost a guaranteed shield from our opponent right now. I say as they no shield, which is fantastic for them, I guess. Especially if they have Solar Beam, this could be very bad for us right now. But I'm going to call that they don't have it and come in with our Gastrodon instead. What move is this going to be? I don't have shield, so if they have Solar Beam, it's going to one-shot us. But no, it's just going to be a Body Slam here, which does very little damage to our Gastrodon. They might throw the next charge move here as a nuke move. If they have Shadow Ball or Earthquake, yeah, it does do slightly more damage here than a Body Slam would. But now I'm going to go for the Earth Power, rather, to try to knock them out before I'm going to be able to get another charge attack. I want to keep my Gastrodon a little bit healthy, just in case that Gator does come back in here. What are they going to bring in? Actually, wow, okay. It's going to be a Shadow Typhlosion. Not what you want to bring into a Mud Slapper normally, but this Body Slam should likely draw a shield. We still have a lot of health on our Shadow Dragonite, and these Mud Slaps, after just 3, have already put them below half health after that 4th one there. I'm going to come in Shadow Dragonite, almost get farmed down, but because I win CMP, this is now going to knock them out here with this Dragon Claw against this Shadow Typhlosion, and we can farm down the rest of that Shadow Feraligatr with Mud Slaps and with Dragon Breaths. GG's to our opponent. Very spicy team. Our Gastrodon putting in a lot of work in that backline. All right, next game, another Shadow Feraligatr in the lead. Let's see how they want to play it out this time. Yet again, it looks like they are staying in for just a second here. Maybe they're going to swap out after a Hydro Cannon, but once again, I want to respect this damage. If they stay in this lead matchup, it likely means Shadow Dragonite is going to have a lot more play in the back. And I mean, this is looking good for us as well, because this is a Pokemon that our Gastrodon just hard walls. Well, it's not a hard wall, but it's a very hard response. These Sacred Swords and Double Kicks will add up against us over time, but Mud Slap is such an oppressive fast move, and Earth Power is enough damage to knock them out here that before they can take a shield from us, we can KO them very easily. In comes another charge move. You can see they are getting us pretty low at this point, into the red already just with fast move and charge move damage, but I'm going to throw this Earth Power right before their 3rd Sacred Sword to guarantee either a shield or a knockout against this Cobalion. In the backline, wow, okay, double Swords of Justice here. It's going to be the Cobalion and Virizion in the backline. We have Body Slam ready to go to at least stall the Switch Clock, and because I know they're full team at this point, Shadow Dragonite has such a good amount of play here. I can swap it in, go for these Dragon Claws, chip them down, and if their Gator comes back in, I can probably just shield against them and farm them all the way down, and that is exactly what they actually do end up doing, which is a little bit surprising to me. I thought they might, at that point, just go for maybe a Stone Edge bait, or maybe just go straight Sacred Sword against us, but that's completely fine. Shadow Dragonite is just putting in so much work right now. We have the ability to shield this, farm them all the way down, and have a ton of energy against that Virizion in the backline. We haven't even brought up the fact that I have a Shadow Drapion in the back, which is a Poison type against the Grass type. Obviously, our Charging Pressure does almost nothing, but at this point, we have chipped them down so much with our Dragonite's Dragon Breath damage. We have another Dragon Claw loaded right now to draw a shield. Our Shadow Drapion is more than enough to close out this game, our opponent not even wanting to find out what our final Pokemon is going to be. All right, next matchup, a Shadow Steelix in the lead. Probably one of the worst matchups we could see here. I know that normally with these teams, our Shadow Drapion actually has a lot of play in the back, but with that said, it's such a bad lead matchup because our Dragonite's weak to it, our Drapion's weak to it, our Gastrodon is strong against it, but they likely have some sort of hard answer to Mud Slappers in the backline. We do end up getting debuffed here with that first Breaking Strike, which is very unfortunate, unless they end up shielding this, which they actually do. And now I'm just going to sack our Dragonite, hope that they stay in with our Gastrodon into the Steelix, and use our Shadow Drapion in the backline. Of course, that's not what they end up doing. They come in with their Giratina, and I mean, at the very least, this is kind of a neutral matchup. I'd have to assume that in the back is going to be some sort of grass type, maybe a Virizion, or maybe a flying type Pokemon like a Drifblim. So I'm going to just let this go, stay in with our Gastrodon into this Giratina, and try our best to flip this matchup. In comes our first Earth Power. These Mud Slaps have added up quite a bit against them, and the Earth Power, putting them in range where the next Earth Power will definitely be able to knock out. Dragon Claw is going to do a lot of damage, but I think Gastrodon is just bulky enough where I can survive this move, get to my next Earth Power, and KO this bulky dragon. With that said, our Shadow Dragon has a lot of work to do. There is still going to be that Shadow Steelix in the backline with a little bit of energy on it, and also potentially whatever that third Pokemon is could be very tricky to take out. I have to no-shield this. I know they don't have Earthquake just yet. Breaking Swipe is going to come through and, of course, debuff our attack stat, which is exactly not what we want to see right now. Aqua Tail is super effective, but after that debuff, I likely need 3 Charge Moves if I ever want to knock out the Steelix. Yeah, if I didn't get debuffed here, 2 Aqua Tails likely would be enough, but that debuff making it so we need that third move to knock him out is absolutely critical for our opponent. Breaking Swipe does end up coming in, this time not debuffing us, but I think at this point it's a little bit too little too late. This fast move pressure is doing way too much to us right now. I'm overfarming, trying to get to 100 energy just in case there's something in the backline I can maybe one-shot with energy. I come in to clear our debuff with our Gastrodon, and in comes their final Pokemon as a Drifblim. This is a non-shadow Pokemon. It's going to take 2 Charge Moves to take out. This Crunch is super effective, but they still have a shield, and I am very low on HP right now. I have done my best to manage my energy this game, but these debuffs that my opponent has have put me into a range where a Shadow Drapion is likely in range where we get get fast move farm down right before the two Aqua Tails are reached. Unfortunately, GG's to them. Very close matchup, very tricky team for us to take down there. Speaking of tricky, though, in Abomasnow in the lead, I don't know how I'm going to win this one unless they stay in with a safe swap of Shadow Drapion. They don't. They instantly swap out here to a Swampert. I know that Swampert loses the Zero Shield matchup to our Shadow Drapion as long as they don't land an Earthquake, so I'm going to go and play for that. Try to get a shield advantage here, maybe farm them down with our Shadow Dragonite, and then have superpowers for that Abomasnow in the backline. That right now is my game plan. As long as they shield this next charge move, I should have some sort of a chance this game, but if they let this go and just bank it all on their Abomasnow, we are likely going to lose this game. Yeah, okay. They know Abomasnow, huge core breaker. GG's to them. I did not have much play there. All right, next matchup, a Pangoro this time, a much better lead for us to see. We have Shadow Dragonite with our Dragon Breath damage, but as we saw in that first game of the day, they have a lot of play into us as well, where they can go for these Night Slashes, chip us down, and these Karate Chops, despite being resisted, will start adding up over time. Once again, a Drapion comes in here to try to respond to our Shadow Dragonite, but we have the hard answer with our Gastrodon. These Mud Slaps doing so much damage. The Crunch, if they end up getting a debuff, could potentially knock us out with the second one, so I will have to keep that in mind just in case we see a debuff come through, but no debuff here. We can no-shield this, farm them all the way down, hopefully. If we can't farm down, I'll throw a Body Slam right before the next charge move. I'm not quite sure where the count is. I'm not counting live as I'm doing this recording, so I don't know for sure, but past me, looks like they were counting perfectly. We farmed them all the way down. Earth Power should come through against, was that the Pangoro that came back in? If so, that's massive damage, and a Body Slam coming through too. Gastrodon putting in way too much work right now. They should either draw a shield or get the knockout against a Pangoro. What's our final Pokemon going to be? It's a Tentacruel Pokemon that obviously we have a lot of play into. Gastrodon is our best response to this, but we have a lot of energy on our Shadow Dragonite. We can draw shields, do a ton of fast move pressure, and then once our Dragonite goes down, our Shadow Drapion in the back should be able to close it out with our Crunch and resisting the poison type damage from this Pokemon. We also saved our Gastrodon just a little bit in case we need to get some sort of way to clear our debuffs, because this thing could have Acid Spray, it could have Scald, which would be able to debuff our Shadow Drapion. So just waiting down our switch clock so we can potentially swap out if we need to here, and our opponent at this point realizing not much they can do against a Shadow Drapion in the back. All right, next game, Shadow Dragonite up against yet another Drapion. That is the Pokemon in Ultra League. Honestly, at this point, it's the Pokemon in Great League you see everywhere. When Corviknight comes out, maybe it's going to be a little bit different, but I'm going to make the catch here on the Crunch, potentially. Hopefully, this is not an Aqua Tail bait. What is it going to be? Crunch is going to come through here, which is fantastic. We have a lot of energy on our Shadow Dragonite, and our opponent is staying in this matchup. At this point, our Dragon Breath damage that we got against them has done more than their Crunch damage has done against us, so I think that our Shadow Drapion actually is going to be able to win the even shielding matchup here. Aqua Tail going to come through. If I can knock them out with the second one, then we are going to be able to win switch advantage. Maybe they'll shield this move, though. I'm not quite sure how they want to play this out. Aqua Tail is going to land against this Shadow Drapion, knocking them out, and in comes a Shadow Feraligatr, which is definitely not an answer here to our Shadow Drapion. At this point, I have switch advantage. I have my Shadow Feraligatr, or my Shadow Dragonite for this Shadow Feraligatr, which has a lot of energy on it as well. They are in a very bad spot, especially with a Shadow Walrein in the backline. I guess I shouldn't say it like that. Shadow Walrein is actually a pretty decent Pokemon to respond to both Dragonite and Gastrodon, but the thing is, Mud Slap damage is going to add up very quickly, and I don't get one-shot by a move here unless it's like an Earthquake. They built up a lot of energy, so I will respect that, but at this point, I can just go straight Body Slams, put them into a range where we can knock them out with Fast Move plus Charge Move Pressure, and we should be in a very good spot. At this point, though, I do have to throw a Charge Move very soon. They could call this Body Slam, but if they do, our Shadow Dragonite probably just closes out this game. Body Slam is going to end up not getting shielded from our opponent. Very good call by them, but this next Body Slam has already been reached. I want to throw this before they can get to another Icicle Spear because I want to get a shield from them, and in comes a Shadow Feraligatr once again. I'm going to throw this Body Slam, get as much chip damage as I can, because I know if this ends up landing, I can probably go in with our Shadow Dragonite here, go for a Dragon Claw, get a shield, and now if they end up shielding this move, I can farm them all the way down, potentially have a Dragon Claw for that Walrein in the backline, and even if I don't, they're going to be forced to throw energy immediately against us with that Walrein. I can Mud Slap them down and potentially win the game that way. Do I get enough energy with this farm down to get the Dragon Claw against the Walrein? It looks like it was actually a perfect farm down here. Dragon Claw ready to go against this Ice-type Pokemon. Shadow Dragonite getting its revenge against the Ice-typing as a whole here, taking out the Walrein and closing out that match. All right, next game, what are we going to see? Shadow Dragonite up against the Talonflame. Fantastic lead here. Let's see if they stay in or if they're going to swap out. If they stay in, obviously that means they're going to be a little bit weak to our Shadow Dragonite in the backline because this matchup is just so terrible for Talonflame they wouldn't stay in for any other reason. I am going to opt to shield here. Incinerate has done quite a bit of our health as well. Fly, though, is going to be a bit of a slower move than our Dragon Claws, so we're going to throw right before they're going to be able to reach another one. If they don't end up shielding this, we can Dragon Breath down right before their next Fly is going to be reached. We can, and it looks like they come in actually with a Pangoro here. Very interesting team from our opponent so far. Dragon Claw should do quite a bit of damage. They actually opt to shield this up right now. I'm going to try to catch a move on Shadow Drapion. We don't quite get the catch here, but I know I survive a close combat from full health. I'm going to CMP right after the 10th Karate Chop. I know that's probably the most likely time where they're going to throw the charge move. Karate Chop is going to be a very high energy generation move, but not quite enough fast move pressure to put us into range where that close combat could have knocked us out. Because of that CMP, they're forced to shield that attack, and now that they are debuffed, I know I can no-shield this, farm them down with either Gastrodon or maybe even Shadow Dragonite and have a ton of energy for the backline. They get the boost, but they swap out to clear their boost with the Talonflame there, and they come in with a Rhyperior. Okay, well, that's fine by me. I have a superpower. What's up with these Rhyperiors today? I have no idea, but this move should get the one-shot against this squishy Rock-type Pokemon. It is more than enough to take them out here. In comes that Pangoro once again, and because they don't have enough energy to outpace us, I know I can reach the superpower here, and our Gastrodon might not even need to see the battle this time. In comes our next charge move here at the last second, reaching the superpower. Probably overkill at this point to knock out the Pangoro, but I want to guarantee that our Shadow Dragonite gets the knockout, taking us the win in this game. Very cool team by our opponent, but unfortunately Shadow Dragonite was a little bit too much for them. That is a terrible lead, though. A Shadow, or a Weezing against our Shadow Dragonite. We have our Shadow Drapion safe swap that we can bring in. Hopefully make something happen here. Our opponent not instantly swapping out, and I know at this point they're likely going to try to go for an overheat, and then maybe swap out after. Or if they don't swap out, that's going to be an even more interesting play, I guess, by our opponent. We have almost 100 energy right now. They are, I guess, staying in for just a second here. Probably trying to drain energy from our Shadow Drapion and then swap out to something in the backline. At this point, I have so much energy that almost nothing in the game would want to take 3 charges from me, but they're staying in even longer right now. They went for the overheat on that first move, so they're debuffed. Even if this is an overheat again, it's going to do very little damage to us. I guess I can't quite see how much damage that ended up doing, but I know after that debuff on the first one, we are still going to be very healthy outside of range, or a farm down, or even a Brutal Swing could knock us out, and in comes a Feraligatr here. This is very interesting. We have chipped down that Weezing quite a bit at this point. I have no idea what the final Pokemon is going to be, and I don't know how much play I'm going to have with our Shadow Dragonite, but I am going to catch a move here with it, because I don't know where we're going to have play with this. I know that maybe catching a Hydro Cannon could potentially be the most use that our Shadow Dragonite is going to have. They do have a lot of energy, though. They can reach yet another Hydro Cannon against us before we can reach a Charge Move, but that's fine at this point. I know I still survive it. We can likely reach a Dragon Claw against this non-Shadow Feraligatr before they're going to be able to knock us out with faster pressure, and now this Dragon Claw is likely going to either knock out or draw the shield from them. In comes that Weezing once again, but I can come in with our Gastrodon, go for a full farm down. We still have energy on our Shadow Drapion. It seemed like they were very scared against it earlier in this game. We'll have to see why that is. I guess they just didn't have a hard response. They had a Walrein, which is a very neutral Pokemon, but with how much energy I was always saving on our Shadow Drapion, they could never bring it in, which means that now Gastrodon is going to have to try its best here to whittle it down with fast and charge move damage, and we do have almost a full-on crunch loaded in the backline. There is still a way we can win this game. These Weather Balls, or these Icicle Spears rather, are going to start adding up quite a bit against our Pokemon. This is going to put us into range where the Powder Snows and the Charge Moves will be able to knock us out, so I have to shield up this next one. I need to draw a shield from this thing, so I can't bait. If I end up baiting and they end up no-shielding, that is going to be our lose condition. I'm just going to full send right now and hope that they end up letting this move through. They don't. They actually opt to shield it up, which is a little bit awkward for us right now. We are going to be able to reach the Body Slam in just a second. If I can survive this attack, I know I can combo play them with my Shadow Drapion, but they also have that Weezing in the backline, which they use as a catch on this Body Slam. I know they're not quite yet at a move on their Walrein, but they are 1 or 2 fast moves off. I can go for the farm down here, undercharge that move, make sure I come out of this matchup with a Crunch loaded, and now Crunch is going to be thrown. Is this enough to knock out the Walrein? It's going to be incredibly close. Crunch, is it enough? Shadow Drapion barely closing out the backline and taking us the win there. Alright, next matchup, Shadow Dragonite up against a Talonflame. As we've been talking about, one of the best leads we could possibly see. It's going to do a lot of faster pressure here. Our opponent actually instantly swapping to a Cresselia, a Pokemon we have a fantastic answer to with our Drapion, and our opponent is gonna quit. Okay, we'll love to see it. Probably gonna be a future sight, I guess, on that Cresselia. GG's to our opponent. Next game, a Gastrodon actually in the lead. Fantastic lead matchup here, and they instantly swap out to a Tentacruel, which is a Pokemon we obviously have a Mud Slapper ready to go against. This is gonna be fantastic, where we can always win switches this game, but potentially be in an awkward spot, because I know that if they get a debuff here, then I'm not gonna be able to threaten that Gastrodon in the backline when they come back in to farm me down. They might get a full farm down against our own Gastrodon, come out of this matchup with multiple Body Slams, and Body Slam against Shadow Dragonite is gonna start adding up over time. They did get that debuff with that Scald, which means that my Earth Powers and my Body Slams and even my Mud Slaps are not going to start threatening this Pokemon anytime soon, which is a little bit awkward for us. I'm going to throw the Earth Power. I know they're not going to shield, and if they can farm us all the way down, have 3 Body Slams for our Dragonite in the back, this could be a little bit awkward. They actually opt to swap out, though, clearing the defense drop that I got with our Earth Power into their Talonflame. With that said, this Pokemon is going to throw on bad timing here. Shadow Drapion, if you ever give it a little bit of an inch, it can go a mile right now. We have a lot of energy here. This first Aqua Tail going to come through. If they end up letting this go, it's going to be in range where it can Dragon Breath down. If they end up shielding it, then at least we are going to be able to get to the next charge move before their next charge move here is going to be reached. And because I know Aqua Tail is a very powerful move, this is going to put them very low. They do opt to shield it up, actually, which is a very interesting play. I'm going to shield myself, knowing that even though I'm not going to knock them out with the Aqua Tail here, our Shadow Drapion is still healthy enough where we can reach a lot more charge moves, put in a lot of work, even into that Gastrodon in the backline. Aqua Tail gonna come through and not quite knock out, but still put in a lot of work in this matchup. We can even reach yet another Aqua Tail against this, and now our Shadow Dragonite is gonna be our win condition this game. I know Aqua Tail will knock this Pokemon out, swap into our Shadow Dragonite before they can reach 3 Body Slams. I can survive 2 at this point. I know our Shadow Dragonite can outpace them because they did not get enough energy here to outpace us that much. Or they go for the Earth Power. I don't know why, but we'll take it. We're going to win that game one way or another, but Earth Power BM, I guess, is the way that our opponent wanted to go out. Next matchup, one of the worst things we could see here, the Shadow Alolan Sandslash. Fortunately, though, unlike in Great League, they are running Shadow Claw instead of the Powder Snow fast move, and this was only 5. That's only going to be an Ice Punch. I can easily survive this and see what they want to bring in. It's actually going to be an Annihilate, a Pokemon that I don't have a hard answer to. We obviously do have access to our Shadow Dragonite that can kind of deal with this Pokemon, but Drapion is going to get farmed down, and they'll have a lot of energy for that in the back. We get a defense drop finally on our Crunch here, which means that this Aqua Tail, if it goes baited, we might even be able to reach the Crunch, get a knockout, or even get a second shield from this Pokemon. Let's see what they want to do. They opt to CMPS at the very last second. I'm not sure I can survive this attack on 1 HP, so I'm going to no-shield this and make sure that our Dragonite can get a huge farm down, go for superpowers against that Alolan Sandslash, and potentially be in a good spot. I'm going to shield up. This could be an Ice Punch, but even a boosted Rage Fist would do a massive amount of damage. It is going to be an Ice Punch, fantastic shield, and in comes that Alolan Sandslash once again. I don't know where my Dragonite's going to have played this game. I don't know if they're bluffing that they're just very strong against Dragonite or not, so I'm going to throw the superpower, get a guaranteed shield against them, and then come in with our Gastrodon to try to go for a full farm down against this Alolan Sandslash. Gastrodon is very bulky. This is Ultra League. I can probably survive 2 charge moves plus the faster pressure, maybe even get that full Mud Slap down. But if I am going to be forced to throw a charge move, I want to make sure I have as much energy as possible. If this is going to be a drill run, it's going to put us very low to Shadow Claw downrange. We'll have to see what it's going to be. It's just an Ice Punch, though, which means we can't get that guaranteed farm down. Have an Earth Power for the backline, likely the Annihilate going to come in and absorb it. And our Shadow Dragonite will have a shield advantage, but we are also pretty low on it. I don't know if we can win, depending on what the final Pokemon is going to be. Our opponent brings it in. It's a Feraligatr of all things. Actually, we reach a Body Slam with our Gastrodon. This Pokemon is by no means an answer to our Shadow Dragonite. I can reach a superpower before 2 moves are going to be reached from this Feraligatr, and I think at this point this game is under wraps. Shadow Dragonite able to close it out. GG's to them. Shadow Dragonite is honestly a very fun Pokemon to use in GBL. It is a little bit hard to make work sometimes when you see a lot of fairies and ice types around, but even against those, you can dance around, especially with Shadow Drapion, and work your way through those matchups. Well, thank you so much for watching today's video. If you want to see my battles live, I stream almost every single day at twitch.tv/ItsAXN, where you can see live insights into my gameplay and see my teams early. I'd love to see you there. The link to that is down in the description. And if you want to see more videos like this, please make sure to subscribe. Thank you again for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.